Sophia, how are you doing?
I'm so good. I'm happy to be here finally.
Yeah, it's good to have you. We've been trying to make this happen for a while. You're extremely busy.
You're literally the busiest man in this part of
This
London.
is not true.
No,
you are
honestly,
always in America.
it's you versus the mayor.
You
at this
literally
point.
never come down to London. Sometimes you're running from something.
Pardon?
Something tells me you're running from something.
I thought this was an honesty podcast. I thought this is where we come and we tell the truth and share the gospel, actually.
Okay, let's start. Because I know you. I mean, full disclosure, I know you, and but I think, and a lot of people listening will be coming here because they saw your name. Some maybe are thinking, who's this lady? So why don't we start at the beginning and explore growing up, right, and how you grew up? Because I am 100% Nigerian, right? Why is that funny?
Because, I don't know, sometimes you do a DNA test and
Yeah.
it's going to come back with
No, I'm
something.
100%. Yeah, I've got that thing. But you're not like me. You're not 100%. You've got a mixture of different identities. And I thought, what was it like growing up in that sort of household where there's a mixture of cultures?
A lot of food. There was a lot of food, a lot of music. I think both sides of my culture. So there's Asia, Southeast Asia, like Sri Lanka and India. I had the map in my head, and West Africa, Gambia. But what's really interesting is my parents grew up in Africa. Mum grew up in Sierra Leone, my dad grew up in Gambia. They came to London. They actually didn't have any relation with their Asian side until quite late on. So we were raised very much as Gambian children, raised very much as black children. But I don't think I've ever heard my dad say he's like mixed heritage, or even my mum. Like they very much, I was going to say identify as black, but they really do, because that's what they raised and it's what they've always known. I think I was in the first year of university. I'll never forget, I was in the first year of university. First year I was in Birmingham, and I was walking with my best friend, and we had been best friends since literally year 7, right? And we were walking, we were talking about stuff, and she was like, oh snap. I was like, what? She was like, I just realised that you're only half black. And the moment she said it, like, I started dying. I was laughing, but it was one of those like laugh through my tears situations, because I had just never told myself that. I had never mentally seen myself as half of anything. Like when you're growing up in a culture that is entirely Gambian, it's not like we ate half a plate of food, do you know what I mean? Half a plate of Gambian food, or spoke half a language, or listened to half a song. It was my entire existence. And she said that, and it shocked something in me, because I thought, she recognises that because it's fact, but that's probably what other people see as well. And I know it sounds so ridiculous, but actually I had never seen myself as like half anything until that conversation, and probably for the better, because I remember then getting on stage once and speaking about things that I was always passionate about, so issues affecting like the black community, and someone came up to me and she was like, why do you think you have the right to speak about these things as someone who's not black presenting? And she said black presenting way before anything presenting was a thing. This was like I was in uni or something like that, so anything presenting was not
black
not
presenting as in you don't look black?
Yeah, she was like, you look mixed but you speak on black issues. And I remember not really knowing what to do with that, because I remember being sat there thinking, but I am black, I am African, I'm also Asian. It doesn't stop inside me. I'm all of them, you know. But that being said, to actually answer your question, like, I grew up in I would say a Gambian household. That was the culture. It was so much food, so much music.
What kind of food?
Gambian food predominantly, but we cook everything in the house, actually. We cook, like, everyone cooks in the house, and we cook so much and we eat so much. So everyone is constantly on a journey of trying to lose weight in my house. But what was interesting, neither of their careers are necessarily creative. They're both quite academic, but because of their upbringing versus how they wanted to raise us, they made sure that we were pumped with so much art. We all learned to play instruments. We all learned to play piano, saxophone, clarinet, violin, and other instruments. We were in museums every single weekend. We traveled the world all the time. We were just so immersed in art and knowledge that sometimes it shocks me that my parents were shocked that we all decided to then go and pursue a career of arts. But yeah, that was basically my upbringing. I think both my parents, extremely passionate people. You'll never have to guess what they're feeling or saying. It will just be on the surface, whether you want to hear it or not. And I think I grew up the exact same way. I'm like deeply passionate and just as sensitive as well. And I don't know, I think everything about how they raised me pointed towards me becoming a poet. I don't think that was the intention at the time, but I do think when I think about the nature of my craft and the nature of me today as a poet, it really links back to my early years.
Wow. I mean, it's funny you went there, because I was going to ask next how the discovery of poetry works. I'm always curious, like, how people become poets. Like, do you accidentally rhyme one day and you're like, oh,
Bazinga.
You're like, whoa, hold on a minute.
Boy, I've cracked it.
I could do something here. Or, because the time you were coming up, there was a lot of sort of black presenting poets.
Oop.
Yeah, there was... I'm joking. But there's a lot of black poets. Like, I'm thinking about the George the Poets, the Sully Breaks, who we've had on the podcast before. I'm sure there are other people who I'm forgetting right now. But did they inspire you? Like, how did it work, that whole sort of discovery of, okay, you know what, this is my thing?
Okay, so I had big emotions as a child. Like, they were massive, as in...
That's shocking.
No, I'm sensitive, man. But yeah, I had massive emotions, and my mum used to say I was either all the way up there or genuinely like the sun could be shining, and I was just a grey cloud in the middle of it. And she was always saying to me, you need to learn balance, you need to learn balance. But I would always write out how I felt, and it would be on napkins, on tissues, on the hundreds of journals that I would have gone through as a child. I felt like I had to write how I felt, because it just was always so consuming. I didn't feel like I had any nuance or regulation, and I'm still working on emotional regulation, to be honest, but I don't feel, I definitely didn't have it as a child. So I was just always writing, and I was always reading, so I always had language to explain how I felt, because I always had my head in a book. And then I remember one day I was on YouTube, and this video came up. It was a Daniel Beatty or something, a video called Knock Knock on Def Jam Poetry. And he ends the video and he's talking about like the arrival of something. And he ends the poem and he basically is like, knock knock, who's there? We are. And I remember it's incredible. It's so incredible and it's so powerful. And I almost haven't listened back to it since I was young, because I just don't want to listen back and it doesn't affect me the same. But I remember watching it and then becoming obsessed with whatever this art form was. It was half theatre, it was slightly rap, it was sometimes melodic, but there was no music behind it. It was just someone being really passionate about something, and sometimes rhyming, sometimes not. And I just remember thinking, this is cool, like this seems so cool, like this seems like such a passionate and impassioned way to explain something you're feeling. But I didn't know spoken word existed. I just knew Def Jam Poetry existed. So one day I went to this community event and a guy introduced himself on the panel, and I was probably like 14 or something. He introduced himself on the panel. He was like, I'm a spoken word artist, or like I'm a performance poet. And I remember thinking, no, you're not. I've watched all of the Def Jam Poetries and I've never seen him. So I just thought, I never even saw anyone like a British guy on Def Jam. I only saw like Flowetry, I think, at the time. And I remember thinking, you're just not a poet. So afterwards I went up to him and I was like, so like, what do you mean you're a performance poet? Where do you do it? What? Because it only existed on my laptop on YouTube. It didn't exist anywhere else. So he's then told me that he's a spoken word artist, and he's opened, this guy called Naziah, he's opened this world of spoken word to me, and I was mind blown. And I joined this like group of people that basically do spoken word, and I did this first performance that I'll never forget. And I got on stage, and I remember it was a guy called McKellamine, and he asked me, he was like, what music setup do you want to the piece you're going to do? And I was like, just drums. Like, I just want to enter through drums, which is actually quite a spiritual thing, really, depending on like where you lean. But I was like, just drums. And I wanted him to play the soundtrack, the drum beat to Jesus Walks. So I walked on stage and there was this drummer like, oh my
gosh, you can beatboxing as well.
And I've come on stage. You get it all when you get Sophia, baby.
Wonderful. This is more than I bargained for. Yes, please. Go on.
And I've come on stage and I'm like, I was just impassioned and passionate. I had a microphone in my hand. I was like, that was the beat that rose like the heat that made, and it was so not mid. At the time it was powerful, and I'm looking back, I'm like,
where was this again?
This was in North London when I was about 15 or 16, I think. And I've performed this piece, and I remember I loved the writing process. I remember falling in love with the writing process. I remember loving witnessing my brain and just how my brain worked at the time. And then I remember being on stage performing, and I felt so comfortable. And I wouldn't even say I fell in love with performance there, and then I wouldn't even say I fell in love with spoken word. I think I fell in love with how much it settled me into me, because I remember being on stage and feeling a level of comfort that I just never felt before doing anything else. And there were other things I did, like I was playing instruments at the time, I was running track at the time, and I was doing really well in those areas, but this was the first time I felt like I was doing something, and it was just like a joining of me to me is what it felt like. And luckily, and by the grace of God, a lot of the people in the audience that day just happened to also run events. So from that day, I just started to get booked and booked and booked and booked, and that's how I ended up meeting people like George and Sully. And they've kind of watched me grow up since I was a teenager into a young woman, and myself the same as well, with them. But that was the inception of it, and I found something that I felt really comfortable in. I found something that allowed me to communicate and explore myself via, and I just never let it go, and I just knew I didn't ever want to do anything else.
That is that's really powerful, actually. Just the sort of
Actually, it's loaded, man.
No, I mean, because you hear a lot of origin stories, right, or how people get started, and oftentimes it's like wrapped in like folklore. It seems a bit too good to be true, but the reason that's powerful is because it's like very human, right? You saw something, and oddly enough, like Def Jam poetry, I remember watching it when I was younger as well, and being just captured by just extremely passionate people who had things to say. And so, yeah, you just seeing that, and obviously just following and knocking and prodding, and then before you know it, you yourself are on the stage and you're doing the same thing you saw. Well, that's a really powerful thing. Because I guess people sometimes see things that moves them and they don't really know what to do with it. So they kind of like just move on. But you had the courage to follow that.
I'm quite audacious though. I'll see someone doing something I find amazing and be like, yeah, I can do that. Like I was watching the Olympics, the last Olympics.
Okay.
And I was watching the Olympic divers and I thought, yeah, I could
Why
do
not?
that. I reckon I could do that if I really tried. So I think I've got that side of me as well. But then also I'm so easily inspired. Like the reason sometimes it takes me so long to finish a book is because I'll be in the middle of a book and then I'll want to write my own, or I'll be in the middle of a poem and I'll just want to write my own. Like I'll watch the news for like 3 seconds and then I've just got to go and get it off my chest. So I think I'm so easily inspired by things. I'm quite easy to print on as well. So I think I saw that thing that. Like it's mad when I think about it, because I was on YouTube watching this thing, falling in love with what I didn't know was going to be my life, which is actually quite sacred. I wish I'd like recorded that part of my life as well.
But I mean, your body carries a memory, right, of just like the depth. I mean, again, not to sound like a copycat, but I've seen every single video or performance on that Def Jam sort of with the guy who would come out, like every single, like, do you know what I mean? So, you know, from Georgia Me to when Eric Bardi would step in, and friends, fans, and artists must meet. Clock it. All right, Auntie.
I'm young.
Yeah, like, you know, I've seen that. Okay, so I'm thinking if your mum was here interviewing you, I think the question she'd probably ask is, so how's that balance thing going?
Balance.
Yeah.
Lol. Do you know what I've done? I think I don't think I've ever focused on a work-life balance. I think I've always focused on a work-life integration. And I remember once you said to me, actually, because I think I called you, I can't remember where I was, and I was just like, there's just so much going on, Max, how do you do it? You're the busiest man on the planet, like, how do you do it? And you were like, you had read somewhere or someone had told you that when you have external chaos, maintain internal peace. And I really hold dear to that. And I think, yeah, so I don't strive for work-life balance, I strive for work-life integration. And luckily, by the grace of God, the thing that I do, the nature of writing, is that there's a lot of leisure inside it. Like a big part of my practice is sitting and thinking. You know, there's a quote at the beginning of that Rick Rubin book where he says that the goal is not to create art, the goal is to be in that state where be in that beautiful state where art is inevitable, creating art is inevitable, or something like that. And I think the nature of writing is that you have to be in a state of stillness, isolation, and devotion to an idea. And in order for me to get to that place, in order for me to get the best out of that place, I have to be relaxed. I have to protect my peace. I have to protect my mind. I have to be undistracted. You can't be distracted whilst you're writing a single narrative book. You know, you can't be distracted whilst you're working on a spoken word piece. You mentally have to be where you're at. I I can't do two things at the same time when I'm writing a poem or writing a song. So luckily, the nature of what I do, balance is very much integrated into it. Balance is a necessity of creating art. I think stillness is a necessity of writing. Stillness is a necessity of creating. Stillness is a necessity of actually building a world around that idea. So there are moments where I get to the end of the week and I'm like, ooh, child, like that was just a long week. But oftentimes they're not weeks when I was writing. They're weeks when I had loads of admin to do. They're weeks when I just had to sit on a laptop for ages and make graphics or something like that. But I don't think I would look at my life and say she has no balance. I would actually pride myself on how much balance I have in comparison to some of the people around me. But I think I've also been afforded that. I think it's a luxury, but it's also something I strive for. I strive for work to be play and for play to be work. And I've always wanted to design my life that way. I've always wanted to build a life of, and build a world around me of things that actually feel like play. And I acknowledge the blessing that it is. I acknowledge the privilege that it is. But I do sit inside, like the thing that I run in is actually great balance and requires great balance.
That's really good. A part of me wonders, when you consider like Adele, obviously her, and we'll talk about that later on, but her chosen field is music, right?
I love her style of life. I love it.
But if you think about her though, she will go and live life and then 5 years after come back and put it all into a song, right? But she's going through heartbreak, you know, she's literally living life. And a part of me wonders, right, when it comes to like poets or just anyone who's chosen the artistic sort of, who's chosen art as their form of expression, whatever it is, if you do have this amazing balance that you're speaking about, can you create deep work? Like really good work that resonates with people, that captures their hearts? Or is there something sort of curtailed by the fact that things are actually really good and you're just kind of like writing sort of from theory? Or do you think you actually have to live some of this chaos to be able to write you know those pieces I hear when you hear like the artist do the interview about how they wrote it, but like, I had £1 left in my name, you know, I had to struggle, I was writing in my friend's basement, and you're like, wow, that's why it's so powerful. Do you sometimes worry about, you know, a lot of your pieces and things you've performed, you know, I remember watching you when you had when you were performing at the
Come on, King.
I forgot.
Come on, King.
No, I remember it. It was Abbey Road, Abbey Road Studios. I remember watching, and so you
what
cover
I
like.
gotta do for you to remember, man? Where do I gotta perform?
Stop it. So you know, a place overseas.
Place is more relevant.
That's what we're gonna say.
Perform at the Palace next time.
No,
Parliament.
no, Parliament. Oh, please. Anyways, so
Bet you'd remember that, though, wouldn't you?
Stop it. So stuff like you cover stuff like, you know, identity, sometimes politics, heartbreak, love. I mean, how many heartbreaks can you have?
So what, £1 million question?
Do you know what I mean? Like, to what degree do you feel like you have to go through these things to be able to create the great work? Or do you have another way of approaching it?
I think a great storyteller is a great storyteller, firstly. I think you can create via osmosis. I think sometimes from the thick of a thing, it takes someone just sharing their experience to inspire the writer that then goes and tells their story better than they could. So I think you do have that, but I think it's like trying to describe someone pinching you after you've been pinched or during your pinch. You know, you're going to describe it way better whilst their fingers are on you and whilst you have a chance to actually ask yourself, okay, what does the nail feel like? What does the skin feel like underneath me? So I do think naturally when you're in that moment, it's more potent. You can look around and describe it, you know. And I think there's a Bible verse that I really like, and maybe you'll get it right because I feel like I'm going to butcher it, but it's the idea that God made you as a masterpiece.
Come on.
And I think we spoke about it the other day, actually.
Yeah, koinonia.
Which means poem, right? Or comes from, or poem is derived from that word, or vice versa.
Correct.
And when I think of, and the verse is basically saying like God has made you a masterpiece. And when I think about how I craft a poem, everything's specific: the comma, the full stop, the line dash, where I put the line break. Everything is so specific. So when I think about my nature, my character, I think I understand that everything is so specific so that I can do the craft that I do. And what that means is sometimes I get heartbroken. That means I'm super sensitive. That means, and I have to be, like, I think I have to be super sensitive to do what I do. And is it an L? Sometimes, yeah. Like, I wish I didn't feel everything so deeply sometimes. I wish I could just regulate like a normal, like someone who can regulate well, you know. I wish I could regulate like my brothers sometimes and just go over things and move past things. But I just can't. Like, I just feel things so deeply, and they just take over me. And it's even if it's something is not that deep in that moment, it's just the realest thing in the world to me. But that allows me to write. That allows me to write something that will hopefully speak to someone who's in that same situation. You know, I can write from the other side of it. I can write the redemption story. You know, I can write the salvation side of it. You know, but actually from the thick of it, if I'm explaining something I'm going through, what I get told a lot about my work is it's a mirror. In your poems, I found something I was going through. In your poems, I learned how to communicate what I was going through. And I don't know how honestly you can achieve that, which is my goal, to be a mirror. I don't know how honestly, did it gracefully, I don't know how honestly I can achieve that without also going through that thing. And that's not something I wish on myself. I don't wish to go through every single thing I write about, but I do acknowledge that a part of my character is super sensitive so that I can do this thing. I think you can do both though. I remember there's a poem I have on YouTube called Beatbox, and I was about 17 or something, and I kept on getting called in to lead workshops on women who had been through domestic violence or sexual abuse. And I, by the grace of God, have never been through those things, but I kept on being called in to a number of workshops to basically help people tell their story and help people navigate what they're going through poetry and through language. And I remember I was a teenager. No one close to me that I knew at the time had even been through anything like that. But I remember being called in to help this case. And at the end of one of the rounds of workshops, I wrote this poem, and it was called Beatbox. And I'll never forget, I was in my old house in Northwest London. I was in the bathroom and I started beatboxing, and then it just felt something in my spirit was just like, go and write down what you're about to write. And I remember being sat down and I wrote this poem. I don't even think I came up for air. I think I literally had my pen to the paper for about an hour and a half, and I came up for air and I exhaled, and it felt like a download. It felt like a whole story, which was made of all of the stories I was hearing that season. And it was a download. And I remember the piece itself was a girl who went through domestic violence, and in the piece I'm telling her story and I'm speaking from her perspective. And I don't feel like the story couldn't have come from me because it's not my story, but I do think I was a vessel to the people that I was working with, and then for whatever message needed to come out. And I started performing this piece, and every time I would perform, people would come up to me afterwards and they'd be in floods of tears, and they would be like, that poem, I feel seen, I feel liberated, I feel able to go and tell someone what I was going through. I feel like you talking about this experience has allowed me to go and talk to my mum about what her husband was doing to me, or allowed me to talk to my partner about what I went through in my last relationship. And in that moment, I realised the responsibility of being a vessel. I realised that even though you always do want to talk about the things you're going through, sometimes there's a responsibility to be someone else's mouthpiece, to tell the stories that can't be told, to be the voice of the voiceless, basically. And then I put it on YouTube, and I started getting hundreds and hundreds of those same messages. So I do think that if you're a storyteller, you're a storyteller, and there is a responsibility to be a mouthpiece. I think there can be a responsibility. And I think sometimes even when I speak with friends, what I get a lot is, like, you said it how I felt it, but I didn't have words for. And music's been that for me, poets have been that for me, books have been that for me time and time and time again. So I think both. I think both.
As you were speaking, I mean, you kind of spoke about this passage in scripture. It did also make me think about, in Exodus, there's a sort of motif that's communicated there that pretty much carries on throughout the whole of the Bible, which is this idea that, like, God's biddings are also like in his enablings. So when God calls people to something, he gives them capacity basically for what he's called them to. So, I remember once I was speaking about shepherds for some reason, and so I did deep research into shepherds, and I'm obsessive by nature, so I remember going deep into a wormhole on shepherds. And one of the things I was doing was looking at sort of, don't ask me how I got here, but I was looking at the hands of a shepherd, and there was all these like little bruises and scars on it, and it's because obviously the sheep bite. like when they're trying to lead sheep to different places. But then what's happened over time with most shepherd is, because that's such a frequent experience, they actually have just tougher hands, you know, so because their hand builds kind of calluses, and there's lots of like, their hand starts to build protective layers. So if you shake like a shepherd's hand, one's always working with sheep, it tends to be quite rough and tough, right? And so their hands is adapted basically to the work they do. And so in a similar way, I think when we are sort of called into specific places, so take me, if I'm working in news or whatever it is, at some stage, you start to develop a set of skills. Your body starts to develop sort of protective layers that makes you better at what you do, that to other people may look a bit odd, but you are basically being prepared. So for me, I can watch really bad videos, because unfortunately I've seen a lot of bad videos, right? I can wade through a lot of data, and sometimes in a way that people are like, don't you feel what's going on? You're like, I do. But if I did that, I couldn't work in what I work in, because every minute you'll see it and you're reading and you're getting news wires about just the worst atrocities in the world. So like, there's also something about just doing the thing that makes you very good at the thing, and then you just start to have a certain, so I'm sure you can compartmentalize in a way that other people probably can't, because
I think I spill over, but I hear
really?
you though.
But would you say most poets, especially at your level, right? Because if you were just the emotional wreck, I mean, you wouldn't be playing the Royal Albert Hall. You wouldn't be releasing books. You wouldn't be sponsored by all the different people you're sponsored by, you know, having the millions of people that seen your work. I think if you were just like a random emotional wreck that's just like, isn't her room writing rhymes? I mean, you clearly are a professional and have achieved a lot of success because you're also good at it. You know, do you get what I'm saying?
I don't think the two argue with each other, though.
Yeah.
I don't think the two argue with each other. I think that I am very emotional. I'm extremely emotional, and I actually think the saving grace, the thing that's in between all of these like accolades and me being that really emotional person in their room, is actually the ability to tell that story. Because I think if I didn't have the ability to write what I was feeling, I would just be on this side of things, you know. So I do think, don't get me wrong, like I'm a poet and I'm poised. I've been doing this, but I think I'm both. And I think like what you said, I think what you water will grow. And I think you add muscle to a thing, the more you do it, you learn how to do it, you learn how to navigate that thing. And luckily, like, I am growing, but I actually think the closer I can get to that emotional wreck version of me, the closer that I can get to that hypersensitive version of me, the more potent the art is going to be, the more relatable the art is going to be, you know. So I don't really turn my nose up on that at all, to be honest. I think I acknowledge that I do this thing as a career and I do it as a profession, but I think if we over professionalize the art and the craft, we can see that from a mile off. And I'm not saying it makes art lose its potency, but I do think a lot of art's potency does come from its honesty, you know. And so yeah, I think you didn't ask a question, to be fair. I think I actually just interrupted you. But
no, it's fine, and I think you make a great point, which again, it's a segue to my next sort of question, if you like, which is, what you just said there, I think, is important to capture. This idea that, you know, at least from your vantage point, you're saying you want to be as connected to that emotional, I feel everything girl as possible. But there is a business side of all of this, right? You are writing, you know, in anthologies, you're writing forwards for books, you're writing your own book, you know, you're doing things. How do you deal with the pressure, I guess, to when you start to get a bit of success and a lot of success in your case? How do you handle the pressure of, hey, we need a piece on this and we need a piece on that, and there's that sort of just write something on love, okay? That sort of thing. Versus, I'm not really feeling loving right now, actually. I want to, you know, I'm in a different season of life, you know. Do you just press a nuclear button and say, I'm not moving past my feelings? Or have you learned how to, compartmentalize perhaps, or how to just show up, do the work, that sort of thing? I mean, for instance, every time you perform a piece, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but are you entering the emotion of that piece every single time you perform it? Or is there a sense that you're like, I've done this 100 times, like, you know, let me just get it done?
Sometimes yeah, sometimes no. Sometimes I get to the end of a piece and I'm like, well, where did I go? And sometimes I get to the middle of a piece and I'm like, well, where am I? You know. So I think it can be both. I think I want to turn around and say, yeah, like I'm always inside the emotion and I don't do anything that I'm not feeling, but that's not realistic. I love poetry so much. I want to do it for the rest of my life, which means it has to be sustainable, which means like I need to show up, I need to show up at the altar of this thing and do it. And when I get briefs, like if I'm going through a breakup and I get a brief to talk about love, like that can be an L. Like it can be an L, because you've just got to go back to a mental space that actually is all broken, and maybe the poem's not as nice when I first write it, but I think you can always pull from a place. You can always pull from a well of things. You can always go back. And one thing I always say to people if they have writer's block is go back to the last things that deeply inspired you. So if I'm going through a breakup and I'm told to write a love poem, like a big campaign comes in, like I did a Tiffany's campaign. Let's say they came in when I was going through a breakup and they were like, we want you to write about a love that is unbreakable and never ending. And in my head, I'm like, well, it's so breakable, actually. In fact, it all ends, actually. But that's not what they want to hear. I think I just have to go back to a place. I have to go back to love books I read, go back to fairy tales, go back to who I was before the heartbreak, soak in that thing, and then write from that place. And I guess like that is where being a professional comes into things. But I think that's everyone. Not everyone wants to go to work every day. Not everyone on a Tuesday morning wakes up and it's like, oh, I can't wait to like look at the stock market today. Even if you love that thing, we're not all you know.
Speak for yourself, love. I'm joking. No, you are right.
Yeah, there are days like you don't want to do the thing you love. There are days you don't even want to speak to the people you love. There are days that you just don't feel like it, but you have to. I think what I tell myself is rise to that occasion, like rise to the occasion, create a version of yourself that is able to feel that but still do that. And not all the time. I don't make a habit of doing what I don't feel. I make a habit of actually really doubling down on my feelings, because like I said, I think what you water will grow. And I think what you starve eventually withers. And I think if I keep watering the muscle that responds to my feelings, if I keep watering the muscle that takes my feelings into words, if I keep watering the muscle that responds to my spirit, I'm going to become more sensitive to these important things. I'm going to make better decisions. I'm going to make decisions based on my biggest destiny. I'm going to make decisions that I'm meant to make for my life, my relationships, my career, my location, because I've strengthened that muscle, because I keep coming back to myself. I keep coming back to God. I keep coming back until that muscle is so strengthened that even if I'm in a space of mass distraction, I can still come back to my root, because I've just created a strong pathway back to that thing.
This is really good. I think you and a lot of other poets I've spoken to who I think I admire, but I think do it well. I think what you're modeling is like integrity. Like you're not just like, hey, listen, whoever pays the most, I'll write a poem about anything. The money's right. Do you want to write about fighter jets? Yeah, I could do something on that.
I actually saw one once. Yeah, I have a story.
It's good. No, it's good. It's good because I think poets have such an important role in our culture as truth tellers, as people who, to your point, are like a mirror. They can hold up a mirror to society and say, look at you, right? Mm-hmm. I really loved when I was in another life. I would have been a poet.
I can see it. You kind of do it, to be honest. We just need to click at the end of it.
Sometimes I do some alliteration, some
just
assonance,
some small spoken word pieces,
some internal rhymes. I can do it. I actually had a little season where I was performing poetry.
This doesn't surprise me. I don't think you have, but it doesn't surprise me.
Anyways, it's an exclusive for the podcast.
You do it all, man.
Anyways,
next time on stage.
It was very short-lived. Let me put it down. No, I think the feedback. This is not part of the questions, but the feedback I got one time I performed piece of poetry.
Wait, don't tell me, because I don't want to laugh at you.
No, it's not crazy bad. It was just like, I think it speaks to maybe I'm in the wrong. I like words clearly, but I think they came to me and they were like, "There's a lot of stuff you said there."
You would think that's the right craft for it, though.
No, they said it's a bit heavy, buddy. They said maybe write a long form piece.
That's strange. You think it's a safe space.
Yeah, I don't think I don't think I'm choiceful. Yeah, legit. They were like, it's a bit much. I'm not choiceful.
I don't rate that feedback.
No, I'm a bit more didactic in nature. I think I like a long, like my dream. If something happens, and I'm like, I want to sort my thoughts out. First, I will read a bunch, and then I will write like a 3,000 word. Here's what I'm thinking on this.
I'm the same.
Structure it, paragraph here, and be choiceful about how it's positioned. That to me is like, yes. If I was forced to turn that into like a 3-minute piece, I think I would explode from the pressure. Yeah. So how you do it, I don't. And you do it so well as well, like, because again, when I've watched you, it's like you can actually convey quite a lot in a minute or two if you're choiceful and very like kind of intentional. And if you know what I find is, this might be getting way too meta, but let's go there. What I find is with poetry, I think what you leave out is almost as important as what you say. And so you have to kind of trust that the gaps you're leaving are intentional enough that people will kind of follow your logic or follow where you're going if you're that kind of poet, or maybe you don't even mind. I think for me, I'm quite nervous about leaving those gaps. Hence my dad back to nature. I'm gonna tell you how to follow from A to B to C to D, and I'll be like, so did you understand the strength of my argumentation? And at the end, I'm like, and that's why we all now agree. Do you know what I mean? So that trust you have to have in your craft, or even the strength of what you're saying, to leave spaces for pauses and gaps. It's a different skill set, right? That I would say you have versus someone who maybe writes just long form articles on like polemics or whatever.
That's a really like interesting compliment, because I'll tell a story and start from the day I was born.
It all started.
Actually, I'll be like, long story short, in '96. No, genuinely, like that is definitely a skill. Like my first TED talk was like, I think it was meant to be around 8 minutes, and I was like, guys, I just need 15.
Really?
I just need a bit longer. Yeah, I actually really struggled to put things in short form. That's why working with brands was such a new thing for me, because when I first started doing poetry, poetry on social media was not a big thing. I didn't have to think about in 1 minute catching people. I didn't have to think about punchlines. I would start a poem once upon a time, in a land far, far away, and I would be performing this poem for 10 minutes long, and I wasn't necessarily a punchline poet. I wasn't I'm going to catch you straight away with some like one word that's going to be super concise and super powerful. I would take you on a very nice journey, and I would lock you into a journey, and you'd come through this journey with me. But my aim wasn't to try and say something really concise in a short amount of time. It was when I first started writing a book, that's when I learned to be concise, because unfortunately you can't put an 8-minute poem in a book and it reads well. A lot of the time you have to craft it. So it was when I was writing a book, it was like, okay, I feel 11 minutes of this feeling, but I need to be able to get it into 30 lines on a book, 30 lines on a page. So that's what taught me to be concise. But my natural nature, you know me, my natural nature is to go on. I sent you like a 4-minute voice note the other day, probably just repeating the same thing, but you sent one back. So I think,
whoa.
If we're going to do that, sorry, I felt attacked.
Okay, it's a trauma response.
No, literally. But yeah, like I think I'm actually a yapper. I can talk until the cows come home. But I've learned that maybe that's why I put music behind it, because at least I can bring people into a lull. When I get when I get my sound clip back from my live shows, let's say my live show is an hour and a half, I kid you not, I'm probably just yapping away for half an hour. There's no poetry involved, but then the poetry part's maybe like a bit more concise. But I don't know. I think the more space you have to tell a story, the more chances someone has to see themselves in it. So
no, for sure. I keep
it long.
No. But also, I mean, beyond even just being concise, because I think that's just one thing. I think you're choiceful. It's clear that you're intentional, and to me, again, I think, and again, you get this in public speaking, right? It takes a lot of confidence to leave gaps and spaces. Because if when I've done like public speaking coaching or whatever, when you're helping people sometimes, when they're nervous, they don't stop talking, because they want to fill every single millisecond of silence with something, with something. No, I'm saying that you're good at this. So whereas I've seen, I think poets in general, this is a skill set they have. You guys use pauses very intentionally, and you use it well, versus public speakers who, the not so good ones, I think, aren't really good at that. So they try to fill everything, because they're scared they're going to lose the audience if they don't say something in that moment. Hey there, just want to say thank you for listening or for watching this podcast. We have a great desire to grow this podcast, and one of the ways we're going to do that is if you listening follow, or if you are watching, you subscribe to the podcast. The faster it grows, the more guests we can get, but also the better the podcast gets. So please, just do me a favor, hit the subscribe button or the follow button. Back to the episode. You write a lot about evolution, and I mean, you practice what you preach, because you've recently announced a big evolution, right? So you're now doing what?
Transitioning.
Wow.
From I see your predicament
Yeah.
earlier. I'm a poet, I would always be a poet, but I am moving into the musical space.
Oh, wow.
I'm moving into the sound space. You're right, I am always in flux. I am always in transition. But I think you have to be if you want to grow. I think, what do they say about fish and the stream, and only like fish with no lives follow the directions. Anyway,
Only dead fishes go with the flow.
but I also almost don't all the way agree with that. So anyway, I find myself in transition a lot. But I think everyone meets the desire to evolve. Everyone meets the desire to transition. You know, when you start to feel uncomfortable in a place, in a relationship, in a job, you know, when your thoughts are actually more negative towards a thing than positive. Everyone feels that in some way. It might just be, I want to transition from being at this event to going home. I want to transition from being this person's girlfriend to being single. I want to transition from this being my job description to actually something else. You know when it starts to irk and judge and nudge. And I actually think I always felt this desire to change something, to whether it was my location or whether it was my career. I always felt this desire. But I actually think I reached a point maybe 2 years ago where a lot of things were stripped back. I reached like a year and a half ago where a lot of things were pulled back. A lot of things that actually were places of such comfort. So yeah, a lot of places that were such comfort were basically pulled away, whether that was people or things. And I think once you've removed so many of your comfort zones, you have a moment to actually sit and ask yourself, okay.
Hey there, just want to say thank you for listening or for watching this podcast. We have a great desire to grow this podcast, and one of the ways we're going to do that is if you listening follow, or if you are watching, you subscribe to the podcast. The faster it grows, the more guests we can get, but also the better the podcast gets. So please, just do me a favor, hit the subscribe button or the follow button. Back to the episode.
I never really wanted to stay in that thing. I never really wanted to be in that place. I never really should have stayed in that job that long. And from that space, I was able to make conscious and intentional decisions to change. And I think there were other moments where I was met with this desire to change, but I was keeping everything else the same. I was keeping the people around me the same. I was keeping the things I consumed the same. I was keeping the places I was in the exact same, but still wanting for myself this big shift. But you can't make a big shift if everything around you, all of your big things, stay the same, because we're creatures of comfort. We're meant to want to run back to things that we have attachments to. We're meant to want to run back to things that are familiar. People date their fathers. You know, people date people like the people that raised them. Sometimes even when it wasn't good. Sometimes you watched your mum go through something that wasn't good with your dad, but your boyfriend is the exact same. Not because you like it, but it's because it's familiar. We go back to what's familiar, we go back to what's comfortable, and from that place, it is such an uphill battle to change something. So I went through this season of actually questioning a lot of the things around me and saying, okay, what around me lives in communion with the Sophia that I want to be? And I realised a lot of those things didn't. So I stripped back a lot of things. Some things fell away naturally. I prayed the scary prayer. God, if it isn't for me, if it isn't for my greatest destiny, remove it from my path, but please don't let it hurt in the meantime. Like, let it be a peaceful transition. Let me actually wake up and not even notice that everything's changed. And eventually I reached this point where I had space enough to ask myself, okay, from this blank canvas, what am I going to do with all of those little dreams? I'm going to put a megaphone to them. What am I going to do with these tiny desires? I'm going to put a microphone to them, and I have space to listen now. And I think it did take, and it does take, in order to make these big changes for yourself, seasons of completely silencing distractions, and actually sometimes just silencing any ulterior narrative. And I realized that we're so accustomed to going online and taking in so many people's lives, and I've got play-by-plays on people's lives that I don't know, but I've had a play-by-play on their life for years, and actually their lifestyle and the thing they talk about and the thing they preach is so different to actually the direction my spirit wants me to go in. But I consume that so much, I realize that's also a voice in my head. So I think if you want to go through these seasons of great transition, you need to silence all of the noise around you, sometimes even the noise that is encouraging you, because you need to listen to yourself, you need to listen to your spirit, you need to ask yourself, actually, what life do I want? Do I want a life of great adventure? Do I want a life of great curiosity? Do I want a job that fuels me? Do I want a job that depresses me? Like, what do I want from life, from my relationships, from my friends? And then make space enough to make those changes. I can't even remember the question you asked, but yeah, I think I am in flux at the moment. I definitely have gone through this transition of actually changing the big things so that I have space to ask myself, okay, now all of the big things have shifted. With this space, what do I want to do with it? And I realized that what I was being called to do was release in a different way. I've always been on stage, I've always performed, I've always, in some ways, I guess, been online doing things, but I've never released anything properly or decided to establish myself as a artist and follow the artist route of doing things. I just never felt a desire to do it. Until maybe top of last year, there was just like this shift in my spirit, and it was like, I felt like God was giving me permission to finally release things. And I feel like if God had said to me, go and be a musician and go down the artist route when I was like 21 or something, God knows what I would have come and brought to the microphone. God knows what I would have even thought my message was meant to be. But now I'm so aware of, because of the years of poetry, I'm so aware of what I'm meant to be saying, what I'm not meant to be saying. I feel like God has called me into this right now, and I'm just acknowledging it as an adventure. I'm seeing it as an adventure. I'm seeing it as a new stage of my season, a new season of my year, or a new season of my life, really. And it's an adventure. I think I'm reframing it as an adventure. When I first felt like God was telling me to do this, I was like, right, cool, I'm on mission. And I was going at it probably like how you would go at anything in the world. But actually, I remembered now, like God's made me whimsical. Let me treat this like an adventure. Let me treat it like redesigning my mood board and treat it like play. And I think actually the moment you shift anything in your brain to play, you just have a better relationship with that thing. I think so.
That's really exciting.
You seem ecstatic. Whoa, calm down, man.
I know. No, that's really exciting. I'm excited for you because I remember last year, you were singing. I was playing the keys.
Oh yeah.
And to see, the fact that at that time, sorry, I'll leave that to the side.
Should I say?
No. But I just remember at that time.
Can you say no? Cool.
No.
So encouraging during this new season I'm walking into.
No.
Yeah, like hell no.
That's not what I mean. No, I'm just saying that, or where you were then to now, where I don't know when this is coming out, but probably new music. Your music is out already.
We're in the.
Your music's out.
Oh, in the future. That's crazy.
Yeah, we're in the future.
Whoa, I wonder how I feel listening back to this. I hope I'm happy.
I think you'll be happy.
I hope I'm
From what I've seen, it's really good.
Thank you.
It's genuinely very good.
Thank you.
The video's amazing. Obviously, you sound good. You sound like yourself. You sound authentic.
Thank you.
It's always scary to me when
let's not go down there.
People just don't sound like themselves. I'm like, this is nice, but what do you sound like? So you sound like yourself, and it's honest. It feels true. It feels warm.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, it's really good.
Love you, man.
No, it's really good.
Love you too, man.
Yeah. I'd love me too.
Cool.
No,
Cool.
It's cool.
They build you up to tear you down, man.
No, you should feel really, really proud, because the amount of people I know who are sitting on, to your point, something that they feel like is a small voice in their mind they haven't sort of satiated or spoken to, or are just too afraid to follow. Like it's so, the culture we live in makes it so debilitating to follow your your dreams, your voice, whatever you want to call it, that someone actually doing it is worth commending. Like, you should notice and commend that. So well done on bringing something to life.
Thank you.
What would success look like for you as you step into this new season?
I would love to build an even better relationship with doing scary things. I think maybe I'm doing things now that I wanted to do for ages, and that's like relocation. That's a lot of things, actually, outside of just the craft. I'm doing a lot of things that actually I've wanted to do for ages, and maybe it wasn't the right time, but I think also for some things I was just scared. And one thing that I had to remember is any big shift is going to be scary, but just because it's scary, it's not a block. Like when a leaf falls from a tree, it doesn't say, oh, that's the end of my journey, I've been defeated. I think it falls and it becomes part of an ecosystem, and it goes through a new season. And I think when I used to look at these big things that I wanted to do and these things I wanted to shift, fear would stop me, because I'd be like, I don't feel like I have enough confidence to do this thing. And then it just had to reframe in my head. I had to reframe fear as normal. Of course I'm going to be scared before I move country. Of course I'm going to be scared before I change career and actually do something that relies on other people. Of course I'm going to be scared before I do that thing, but I need to just acknowledge that as a step and then feed myself, like constantly feed myself with things that bring me confidence. I think, let's say it is relocation, and let's say everything you consume is people that already live in that city. It's gonna excite you for that thing. But I think what is really important in that phase, if you're scared, is actually soaking yourself in stories of people that are making that transition, soaking yourself in stories of what that transition was like for people, so you can just see yourself in their journey, but also just be immersed with the people that overcame. And I think sometimes that's what you need to be telling yourself, more than seeing someone's finish line, actually seeing their journey and like making yourself privy to that journey. And I guess like the music that I'm releasing is about that. It literally is about the journey. But to answer your question, like what does success look like for me? I think success for me is becoming quicker at overcoming fear and doing the big things that I need to do. Success for me is hearing people sing my song and seeing them seeing themselves in it. It's getting my pen to a place where I can be a mirror to other people's experiences. Success to me is people coming up to me. Like the highest compliment for me, the compliment of the highest order, is someone saying, "Oh, like, you explained it exactly how I felt it, but I didn't have words for it." And also, like, "You're pretty." Like, those are like my favorite compliments, you know. So I think that to me is what success would look like.
It's very good.
Yeah.
I wish you like all of that and more.
I thought you were gonna say I wish we were recording.
Yeah, the audio isn't recorded. No, I wish you all of that, because obviously watching your journey, as I have done, is it's just amazing to see people always chasing their best self. You know, it's like
I just want to meet her.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of like, you know, that old proverb, tomorrow never comes, right? It's the same way you kind of never really meet her, because you're always
constantly becoming her.
Moving.
How can I say I can't wait to meet her? You're like, yeah, you never will me.
Yeah, sorry, love. Cool. You're not making that. So sorry, love. No,
but you'll know when you arrive at a version of yourself, though. You'll know.
I don't know.
It might not be your end, but you'll know that you've arrived at someone you were chasing.
I think maybe I can see a world where that happens, but I think it's so fleeting. It might just be a feeling you have for a minute, and then it disappears so quickly. It does feel like trying to catch wind in a sense, because I think what does happen, is after a while there is a feeling of getting better at things where you feel like you're kind of entering, I'm actually good at this, which is very, you know, when you're starting anything, you know, I remember when I first tried to start something, like some sort of project thing, I was wearing this blazer and jeans and nothing matched, and I was just running around trying to help people believe in what I was saying, like, guys, I think it can't work. People are like, oh, shut up, you know, you're 17. I'm like, no, guys, I believe in it, you know. And you get to a stage now where people are asking you, you know, do you think we should do this? And you're like, this is really fascinating. I remember being on the outside, knocking to get inside, and now, you know, I'm getting.
That's arrival, though. That's knowing.
So, I don't know. Sure. I think you can definitely see it as that.
Just give it to me, Matt.
No, the reason why I think I struggle to see it as quote unquote arrival is because all that's happened now is I've just shifted the sort of Overton window like far wider. So now I'm thinking, what would it look like to do these things across 10 countries? You know, so in my mind, I'm always chasing that guy who is just so far away. What I feel is competent. What I feel is good at what I do. What I feel is, without sounding like facetious, is a certain level of mastery of like, I know what I'm doing, but I still feel like a novice. I still feel very like, there's so much I don't know about other countries. And what does it look like?
I get it. You know? I get what you're saying. And actually, I think it's very true to people that are ambitious and people that are striving for something to not feel present in their moments. I think that's quite normal, because you're chasing something, like you're constantly chasing. And I share that character trait where, again, like something good happens and I'm on the next, I'm thinking of the next one, I'm focusing on the next thing, like where else can it be? There's so many books to read, there's so many poems to write, there's so many songs to sing.
Books.
You know, yeah, literally. But I think what I'm also learning is there's something called a permanent now, which is the only thing that's ever permanent is the now that you're in, and actually putting a flag in the sand in those moments and actually sitting and saying, yes, okay, let's say I've released one song. Yes, one day I want to release an album. One day I want to release 10 albums, and I'm still like striving towards that thing. But the version of me a few months ago, this was her arrival. You know, this was one of the arrival points, and the I don't know. It's like what they say. Like the destination isn't the destination. The journey is the destination.
It's all about the journey.
And I believe that. I really do. But I think you do have to give yourself milestones inside that journey. Otherwise, one, you're not tracking your path. If you're constantly running, like you miss everything. Like when I'm designing a live show, one thing I'm so bang on about is I make sure I've memorized my pieces long before the show. I make sure I know them long before the show, because the process is longer than the time that you spend on stage. You go on stage and it can feel like it's gone in a blink sometimes. So what I give to myself is the whole experience. I give to myself the entire process. I protect that process so much. When I'm writing a book, I move out all of the time. I go to a different country to write my books. I move into different spaces to write my shows. I gift myself that entire process, because the process is the destination. You get there, you perform that thing, and you could say that's where you've put your final flag in the sand, but actually no, you spent more time here. So make it enjoyable. Give yourself the accolades, give yourself those mini trophies in between. Otherwise you're going to be constantly chasing something. You're going to be constantly going for something. You're going to look back and you can only celebrate when you're 80 years old because you actually physically can't do anything else. No, like you've got to put your flags in the sand, and every now and then get a little party popper, celebrate that moment, acknowledge this is a version of you that you prayed for 5 years ago. This is a version of you prayed for 10 days ago. This is a version of you prayed for how many months ago, and then keep going. But I think we have to learn to have a permanent now. We have to learn to be present. We have to learn contentment for the space we're in now. Otherwise we lose time. We lose time, you know. That's
really good. That's really powerful. There's a.
And I feel like guys more than girls as well.
Yeah. I mean, there's. Sometimes we're talking about the same thing, but as you know, language is so important, because one of the ways, you know, I've seen it framed is, I remember learning that, you know, there's, you know, when I was younger, all I wanted was my dreams to come true, right? That was like, you know, I want my dreams to come true, whatever. I remember someone telling me once, I don't know if they told me, I read it somewhere, or I came up with it, I actually don't know, probably a confluence of those things, of like, there's something greater than your dreams coming true. And it's living in God's dream for you, and how if every day you wake up,
what?
Every day you wake up and you acknowledge that, so long anyways as you feel like you're following sort of God's voice, if you're someone who's religious, every day you wake up feeling like I'm in God's dream for me, it's the best day ever. Whatever it is you're doing, whether you're speaking in front of 40,000 people, or you are doing admin, you know, and it's raining outside and it's just you, or you're filing taxes, or you are having coffee with somebody and laughing till your belly hurts, all of it, it's so long as you feel like you're submitted to a higher power, say, and you're living in God's dream for you, it's the best life you could be living. There's no better life.
I believe that.
And that is for me a real sort of northern star, because you know when you're young and you're ambitious, you do get your sense of self wrapped up in all sorts of things. You think, when I get to this level, but again, having, you win some awards, you start to realize this is really not that deep. Like all these things, all these external things can't speak to like your internal child. You've got to ground your journey in something other than people clapping for you, because the same people who clap for you, you know, if you put out a piece that maybe it's too poignant, or it's
too the other way,
or it's too sharp, suddenly it's like, oh gosh, you know, or maybe someone else comes along and she's a flavor of the month or a flavor of the year. You know how it goes. You know, there was I was seeing a TikTok a few days ago. They were speaking about how, like, in the UK, this one was a polemic actually. They were saying in the UK only has space for like one black person at a time. So like it was like Stormzy like for a while, and then there was a stage where it was Skepta, you know, and then it was like what's his name? the guy who stars out, what's his name again?
Tiny Temper.
Tiny Temper. And like how like ever so often.
Was it Tiny Temper? No.
Yeah, I think it's Tiny Temper.
No, it's
We're
Did
Ring
she
the
try
Stars. I don't even know. But you get the gist. Like, and I was like, that's actually quite interesting because I do remember it being a thing where like Stormzy was just everywhere. He was did everything. He was, and then there'll be some new person, and then I'll be like Idris Elba, you know, Damson Idris, and if you're wedded to people's applause or like just the approval of like the masses, as it were, just think such a dangerous place to be. And I imagine for a poet or someone who's a truth teller, if you get hooked on that, it can be quite dangerous, right?
It can be really hard. I can't lie. Like, it can be really hard. It can be really hard knowing that you need to write something that is true to you and true to what you feel like you're being told to do, but also something that is relatable and something people are going to gravitate towards and clap for. And actually, when social media really started to pop off, I felt like I started poetry before social media started to pop off, and I found social media really challenging. Yeah, like,
I'm sorry.
Wow. Am I being age shamed?
Not pre-social media. Back in my days,
literally, PS.
I used to write on the BlackBerry.
But like before it was a career, you know, before social media was a career, I had this career, and when I had to first start putting poems in formats that were palatable, and you had people's attention for like 2 seconds, 3 seconds. I found it really, really hard. I found it really difficult to reason with myself. Am I going to put the audience at the forefront of my thinking when I write, or am I going to put my truth at the forefront, or am I going to pray that the two coincide? And I've got friends that are amazing, that I think their poetry works so well on social media, like Sully, for example. I think Sully's poems work incredibly on social media. I'm not always sure the way that I write is actually best for social media. I think I'm best taken and best served at a live show. Yeah, 100%, because I just have time to chat and like bring people into my world. I think what I strive in is building a world for people to step into. Sometimes that's really hard to do in like a minute 30, or I can find it quite challenging to do in a minute 30. So that's something I really, really have grappled with, really like digging my feet in the sand and being sure, okay, this is the message I'm meant to be telling right now. This is the way I'm meant to be saying it. And again, it did take silencing a lot of the distractions, silencing a lot of other people around me, and actually coming in tune with my first compass, which is God. And actually, you spoke about Exodus, I always come back to, is this a Christian podcast, by the way?
No, it's not,
no, okay.
but you can be your full authentic self.
No, I'm joking. I always come back to...
Let's just lift our hands right now.
Yeah, I was supposed to do worship. I always come back to Exodus, where God is saying to Moses, you go and I will be your mouthpiece. And I feel like that's a word God has also given me. It's like, you go, you be responsible, you figure out your craft, you become excellent at your craft, you create a world that means that when I do give you your message, you can tell it well, tell it responsibly, tell it on a big stage, but like be a vessel. And I think actually coming closer to my compass and coming closer to actually figuring out what my purpose was, it took silencing a lot of the distractions around me. If we're consuming so many lifestyles every single day, sometimes we like something so much we think that's what we're called for. Sometimes we see someone doing something so often that we think we're called to that thing too, that we think that should be our goal, we think that should be our aspiration. But actually, when you silence all of the noise, when you go on holiday and you have a moment and you sit and it's actually, I could live in a country like this. Or somehow you found yourself in a community of people that think like you. You're like, actually, these are the people I should be around more. Or you find yourself in a conversation with someone and you realize, that's the kind of person I should be in a relationship with. Unless you silence all of the other noise that we take in and move space and trust that thing that's happening when you find yourself in those spaces, trust that and make that your compass, you might never know your destiny. You might never meet your purpose. You might never actually accomplish the great destiny God has planned for you, because you just keep on taking in and immersing yourself in all of these lifestyles that are actually not the one God has set apart for you. And we all have that feeling. Oftentimes it happens on holidays when you have time to actually sit and ask yourself, I want to do something a bit differently. And then we go back into routine, we go back into comfort, and we never do the big dream. We never quit the job. We never start the business. We never leave the relationship. We never find the relationship. We never say the thing. We never confront the conversation, because we get back back into comfortability, we get back into routine. We are creatures of habit. No matter how much we say we're not, we're creatures of habit. I do think it takes the quietening. It takes coming to a place of stillness. It takes just silencing the distractions, even for you just have to not be on social media for a day and you feel like a new person. When I don't go on social media for like one day and I'm around my friends and they're on their phones, I'm literally like, look at you guys, obsessed with your phones, your phone ADHD. And this is after just me not being on my phone for a day. Give yourself 3 days. Go on a fast. Give yourself 3 days where you just don't take in other people's opinions, don't take in other people's lifestyles. You're just tuning back in with your mind. That feeling you get before we sink back into our routine, I think that should be our compass. I think that should be the North Star, because oftentimes that's when God has space to just talk to you. God is always talking to you. We just have other things that are louder than God happening in our lives all of the time. If you silence those noises and silence those voices, if you go to the mountaintop, if you go to the valley, if you go and do the 40 days, if you do these things where you fast from everything else, God has space to talk to you. You have time to tune into what God is saying you need to do with your life, not what social media said, not what Instagram's saying you should do with your life, not what all of these infographics are saying you should think or believe, but actually what God is telling you is the truth, and the truth for you. You can only really get to that point of knowing your purpose and have the strength to follow your purpose if you do open space for that channel again. And I think at the moment we're such a distracted generation. Everything is built to distract us. Everything is built to influence us in some way or the other. But if it's not the thing that's inside of you that you were built with and born with, you just got to be very careful.
Poignant as ever. It's really good. I don't think we can have a conversation without talking about New York. Our shared love of New York.
My crush.
I think it's developed into more than the crush for me. New York is now my. That's a terrible example I was about to give, but let's not say that. But you spent quite a lot of time in New York. In fact,
what were you about to say?
Nothing. Moving swiftly on. You spent quite a lot of time in New York. As do I. And I just thought it would be nice to end this conversation by talking about New York a bit. I don't know. Just give you New York.
Well, New York is a place where, and I don't want to sound like one of these Americans.
It's like totally.
I fear that I am, but it's not the fact that it's in America. That's not what I find beautiful. I think what I find beautiful is it's a place where I found people were expressive. It was a place where I felt like passion sat at the tip of people's tongues. I come from a place in London. I come from a house that's very passionate, but I come from a city that people can be feeling 101 things, and you might get like the one thing they might be feeling. That might be the only thing that comes out of their mouth, or you might never hear anything. I think we come from quite a conservative place.
Yeah.
I went from wanting to explore myself as a poet to needing to put on a headline show in order to be around poets and gather a poetry community, to entering a place where there can be 30 poetry shows on any given day throughout the city, entering a place where I sit down on a bench and the person next to me is sat writing poetry. Imagine the thing you love so much, but in the city that you're in, it's kind of not that popular, then finding a place where it is so loved and so appreciated and so normal. I felt like I met myself. I felt like I could just go and open myself, and in doing that, I think you only really get to explore certain sides of you when those sides are liberated in the space that you're in. You might always want to be an expressive person, but you've just never been in a space that has allowed that, and then suddenly you go to theatre school and you find yourself and you find this new layer of yourself. You might always think that, and that's the power of community, like you might always feel isolated in a thing, so much so that thing is trapped underneath your tongue, that version of you is trapped inside your body. And then suddenly you find a community of that thing and you feel liberated, you meet yourself, you feel your shoulders drop, you feel your chin rise, you feel your chest come out, like you feel all of these things because all of a sudden you have a community of people that also do that thing. And that is the power of community, that is the power of solidarity. And New York was that for me. New York was suddenly going to a place where I felt like I could just express myself and be free and wear the things I've always wanted to wear, believe the things I've always believed to be true. And say the things that I've always wanted to say and have so many stages to say it on. And I saw myself in so many of the people. I was surrounded by poets. I was surrounded by people that felt they had an obligation to say a thing and express a thing. And I just don't know if I always felt that in the UK. And maybe it's because I just don't immerse myself in the poetry community here. But in New York, I just felt like there was this energy. And everyone says it. They say New York's got an energy. And someone said to me the other day, it's because of the land it's built on. And I think the ground that anything grows on speaks so much to the climate that grows in that place, just geographically. And apparently New York, the property, don't even quote me on this, but apparently the granite that it's built on, the property itself is very vibrant. The property itself is like in constant motion, and it's quite like this. And that's why everyone's just like this, you know. And you go to some other places, you go to places that are built on volcanoes, and they're in the region, and the ground itself is volcanic, and the energy that protrudes is very calming and very soothing. And oftentimes you find that's where people go to retreat. That's where people go to have wellness breaks. That's where people go to have spas, to meet themselves. The ground in New York is like this, you know. And I think that's where people go to chase something. It's where people go to believe something. It's where people go to just find their voice and reclaim their voice. And that's what it was for me, and it's what I needed. And a part of me is like, I kind of wish I was 21 there. I kind of wish I turned 21 there, because I wonder what the woman I would be now. But actually, I'm so happy I went at, I think, 28. I remember turning 28, and because it's my lucky number, because it's my birthday, I remember turning 28 thinking, I want to give myself a movie this year. And I gave myself a summer holiday. I gave myself months off to just enjoy and do what I wanted to do. I literally gave myself, like, I said, this year, because it's my favorite number, I'm just going to give myself a movie. Because, like, you can't just work forever, you know? Like, you actually can't just work forever. I said, I'm going to take a year. I'm going to enjoy myself. And I just booked this flight to loads of places, to be honest. But I think the most important place I could have gone at 28 was New York. I gave myself this summer holiday to just be around poets, to explore poetry, to explore myself. I had no big intention. I had no big plan. I just said, I know that I need to give myself a break. And I gifted myself that, and it changed me. And actually it completely redirected my character, it redirected my personality, because I found so much of myself when I gave myself a break. If you don't give yourself a real moment of pause, you'll just running, but you're not actually having time to define your trajectory. I took a big pause, and I was like, actually, now that I'm here and I'm frozen, or I'm staying still, what direction do I want to go in? So when my summer holiday ended, when I had another birthday, I was like, okay, this is the direction I want to go in. And like, the direction I want to go in is everything I found in New York of myself.
Wow.
Yeah.
I love people talking about New York, because I have the same, well, I feel similar things, but for different reasons, I suppose. But yeah, I mean, everything you said, I concur. You know, I can see it all. And yeah, there's nothing quite like finding a community of people who are like you. It's interesting. You know, you could, you know, the set of skills you have in one environment can be like, you're too much. And you go somewhere else and like, you're not enough. And it's like, wow, look, the community you're in, or the people you're around, really does dictate, you know, how, you know, it's just so much about even how you think about yourself. You know, one of the things I love the most about New York, everything you've said, yes, but also like the can-do-ness of just the people I know there. Yeah. You know, and obviously we've got some clients there, so there's times where I'm speaking to people, and there's just like a, you know, with my British sensibilities, I come in and I'm like, you know, here's something I'm thinking we ought to do, but here are 5 reasons why it might not work. And they're like, Mike, why are you starting with that? Yeah. You know, like, let's like, we can do it. Like, let's forget about why it might not work. Like, you know, give me 5 reasons it might work. And that's because I'm just used to being here. Yeah. You know, and all the different things I do here, we're all often risk assessments. Right. What could go wrong? What could go wrong? And how do we prevent it from going wrong? Whereas there, it's just in the atmosphere. Obviously, it being you know, it's a place where immigrants settled and all made life happen. You know,
it's a lot of dreamers.
It has, it's just a city built for that. Yeah. So it's really nice to be around people who just like, it can happen. Let's go.
And you want to be around dreamers. You want to be like you said. I think what you said is so key. Like it informs what you think about yourself. If you're around people that are no people, are pessimists, are people that see the doubt in everything, you're going to start thinking that about all of your dreams as well.
For sure.
I think if you're in a stage in your life where there's things you want to go at, there's things you want to do, there's things you want to change, the best thing you can do is go and be with your dreamer friends, go and be with your unrealistic friends, go and sit with your artist friends, like silence the pessimism, because that informs what you think of yourself. If someone is every day telling you can, look, you're going to believe that about yourself, and you're going to have all of the muscle that you need to run at that thing. But you just have to be so careful who you surround yourself with, because it informs what you think of yourself massively.
It's such a shame as well, because I don't want it to feel like we're just like not celebrating London. But you know, I've been here my whole life. I know, and I have deep relationships here. Honestly speaking, 9 out of 10 people here, I think if you told them I want to do something out of the ordinary, would be like, you're doing too much, mate.
Right.
I just think that's just the reality. Right. You might have that one friend or a few friends who are like, yeah, why not?
But it might not be, even if the people that say why not, they might not be like ecstatic.
This
like,
is it. Yeah, you can do it. It's kind of like,
okay, cool,
yeah, exactly that. Cool. Whereas my friends knew, I'll mention them, they're like, why are you going so small?
Yeah,
like, go bigger.
It's like a firework pops off, literally.
I'm like, what, you really think so? I mean, I remember one time, I don't know if I shared this experience with you, where I was applying to enter a sort of consulting relationship with this organization in America. It's my first time ever working sort of formally with an organization. I remember going to them, and I said a number. I didn't say the number. I wrote the proposal, and I put the number in for the sake of, you know, giving people. I won't say the actual number. Let's say here there might be like a 5K retainer every month. Let's say something like that. So I sent this to a friend of mine who works in America, and I was like, does this look okay? And he's like, yeah, but like, why is it so low? So I was very confused by that, because if you're getting paid 5K a month here for like, just like advice, it's quite good, you know? So he was like, why is it so low? And I was like, what should it be? And he was like anything between like 5 and 20. So you should probably push up to the upper end, like 18, 19. My heart was shaking as he said that. I was like, isn't that too much? You know? And he was like, this is America, baby.
Yeah.
But there's nothing such as too much. That's not an American thing.
It's just how
like,
you can talk about it.
There's nothing such as
literally.
too much. There's people who would start at 30K, talk less, that being their top. So he was just like, there's nothing that's too much. And when he said that, it just hit me like, I've been taught the opposite thing here.
Right.
Too much is something you're often told. If you're loud, it's like you're too much. If you have a big personality, you're too much. If you're like, if your laugh is too loud, it's like, calm down.
Right.
We're always moderating in this country, because we're kind of temperate, sort of moderate culture.
Right.
Whereas there, and by the way, it's not all good. Like sometimes you wish they would moderate. Like you see some of the stuff that happens in politics, they're so extreme. I remember watching some of the commentary around politics, and some of the stuff that people are saying, I'm like, why are you guys so extreme? You know, they're like, all his life he was this. I'm like, just calm down. You can say that he has some good things, some bad. So like, it's not all well and good, but it did strike me as a clear difference between cultures, where here we're drawn to moderate and to sort of find the middle ground, whereas there folks are extremes. So like, they're extreme dreamers, whereas here we're dreamers with a seatbelt, we're dreamers tethered to the ground. Like we're kind of like dreamers, but kind of,
but wake up.
Whereas there's like, it's limitless. It's like you're in a coma.
Literally. And it's wonderful, and they have communities of that in London for sure. But like, again, if you're a dreamer in protest to everyone around you, it's not that helpful. Do you know what I mean? You kind of want to be a dreamer around a whole city that also dreams. You know, you want to build a city of everything you believe in.
Well, I'll be watching your journey very closely. And I'm just excited, obviously, for this project that probably is going to be out by the time we release this. And I hope it achieves everything you wanted to achieve. I hope it blows your mind, even with the kind of success it has. And no doubt it will. You're welcome back anytime.
Thank you.
Next time you've got another objective. No, you're.
Next time when you have a better idea of things.
No, if you've got a book, you know, no, you're actually welcome back anytime. You're welcome back anytime. I think I've had a great time, and I'm sure people listening to you have had a good time.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for doing this.
Thank you.
Well done. You're done.